It's the Derek and Mike podcast. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. You can connect with us online. Links to all our stuff is on our website, derekandmike.com. My name is Mike, and this is my boy, Derek.
What's up, Mike? What's up, everybody?
D, I wanted to ask you about something that I recently ran into work-wise in the world of professional. I had to eat a little bit of humble pie recently, and it was kind of a cool experience. And I wonder if you had something similar where you're at like the top of your game, dude. You're like at peak performance of your professional career. You're rocking it. You're a leader at work, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I'd say I'm up there. I'm not the man, but I'm one of the men. I'm up there. I've worked my way up to a decent status at work. And my job is essentially working with contractors, getting them to rent construction equipment from our company versus a competitor. When we started out, I used to be assigned zip codes, and I would have to go to job sites and walk around and talk to dudes digging trenches and get them to, tell me what they were going to need next and all that. And I would go ask the big account manager guys to say, hey, your account you work with is going to need a fucking trencher or a forklift next week. Will you ask the company to rent it from me? So my job site I'm responsible for gets the revenue for this rental. Right. I was on the job sites a lot and all that kind of stuff. And it was fun. I really liked it. And then eventually I worked my way up to being the big account guy where other guys are working the job sites and they're calling me and saying, hey, the big account you work with is going to need some shit next week. Will you go and talk to them? And I get to go take the guy golfing and take him out to lunch, ask him for the business. And my job got a lot cleaner and a lot more enjoyable. And I love it. Recently, we lost a job site rep, the one who covers a job site in an area where there's big, important jobs. And so the managers all had to kind of ask other people to cover these jobs while we wait to backfill that position. Mm-hmm. And so they hit me up like, hey, Mike, would you mind, we're going to need you to work one of these job sites while no one's covering it. And, we know it's not your job, but would you do it? And I'm like team player guy. So I'm like, yeah, no problem at all. I'll do it. Whatever we need to do. We're a team, right? So let's get out there and do it. And it was kind of an interesting experience because truthfully, I did have that egotistical first thought of, well, that's not my job anymore. Like I've been bumped up the ladder, dude. I don't work job sites anymore, which was immediately erased by everything is everybody's job. And if I need to take out the trash, I'll do that too. And I'm not bigger than any position. I'm not better than anyone else. So fuck yeah, get out there, pussy, and do it, Right. But I did have that initial thought. I have to be honest. And it's been cool. It's been fun. And it's been kind of neat going out and working this job site like I used to. It's been kind of a throwback. So it's been kind of a cool taste of humble pie. I've been enjoying it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think that so there's times where like I do have a specialty and I like to I get excited when I work in that specialty. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like if I have to do pretty like design stuff, that's like my bread and butter. I just love designing things. I love to I've always been really good at designing things, so I just love to do that. When I'm asked to do some things that are like things that we have other people to do, I don't enjoy that. I'm not like, I feel like, yeah, you could drag me down and I can like do this project management task or whatever. But like, I'm going to be annoyed while I'm doing it. And I'm not going to be doing my best for the company when I'm doing that.
Do you feel like it's like misallocated resources? Like, hey, you're sending in the big guns to kill a fly kind of thing. Like I could be doing much more impactful, high level stuff. It's like stepping over $1 to pick up a quarter, having me do this menial task.
When we have somebody else that is there to do it, you know what I mean? When somebody else is actually, it's part of their job to do,
and like they're there and available. Okay.
And they're there and available. Yeah. I mean, granted, there's things that I do that are outside of what I generally have done. Or usually work on my specialty. I feel like I have some sort of an obligation to the company to like not do things that other people can do. you know what I mean, not do things because I can, I spend my time trying to take us to the next level. And I've done it a bunch of times in this company. I've taken us onto Elasticsearch, this new, and I've made big strides in the company to where I've made them a lot of money. I've made this
Right.
company a lot of money.
So you're
And
like high level, big picture guy who's thinking, well, you're thinking big picture and you're deciding where the company would go in a larger direction. And then other people are more incrementally responsible for the building blocks of creating those
Mhm.
different directions and making the vision come true. But you're like the high level visionary guy.
Yeah, right,
All right.
exactly. That's where I excel. That's where the biggest gains that I've done for the company. And
Sure.
honestly, if I were to like have to do those other things, I would find another job. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not only because it's not because I'm better or I'm too good to do that stuff. It's not really about that. It's just about like I don't know. I feel like I want my position, my role. If I don't feel like I'm learning something, you know what I mean? If I don't feel like I'm actually learning something and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing things because somebody doesn't want to reach out to somebody and get them to do it or whatever like that, just be,
Mm-hmm.
out of
Busy
their
work.
inconvenience. Or yeah, I'm just like, that's not really, and I've been here for like 12 years too. So like I think
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten enough clout to where I feel like that's negotiated in for me, at least in
Right.
my mind,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah, I'm
Well,
saying
to a
this
certain
because
degree.
this has happened before where,
Oh, really?
yeah, somebody I report to like was having me like manage this project, wanted me to manage this data export project. And quite literally that's a project manager job,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I, okay, can I do it? Yes. But like the reason I'm doing it is because you don't want to have the project or you don't want, it's more convenient for you to ask me to do it rather than have a project manager do it. And the thing is that I'm friends with the CTO too.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've been friends forever, and every time I go to him and I say like, hey, I'm having this issue with somebody that I work with. Every single time he says, "Go talk to him about that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him." He gets me to go directly to the person. So that's what I do. So I'm not scared to do that, even with somebody that I would report to and say, and that's what I did.
Right.
I said, hey, I would, yes, can I do a lot of different things in this company? Yes, I am able to, but it's better if you have somebody who's actually meant to do that job,
Mm-hmm.
just rather than hit me up for inconvenience because then I get frustrated too.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tricky thing, but I get where you're coming from.
Well, it
Um,
is a tricky thing. It's also a slippery slope and all those other cliches
mhm.
because you want to be a team player. You want to be the guy who's just like, sure, if what needs to be done right now is take out the trash, I'll do it. Like I would be the CEO.
Mhm.
Everyone's got respect for the CEO who is willing to do the grunt work, right? Anytime you see a leader doing the grunt
Yeah.
work, it's good for morale. But you also can't be the leader who's always doing the grunt work because then you kind of lose um, you kind of like lose stature. Like you shouldn't be doing the grunt work. You should be the big picture guy. You should be leading from the front. And we love the fact that you're willing to, get down to the trenches and eat the same food as us. But we also want you to be elevated to a certain degree and get us and lead us to the next phase and keep leading us to success. So it's a tough balance between being willing to do those sorts of things, but also reining it in when it makes sense because you don't want to just be the guy where they're like, oh, hey, this really isn't Mike's job, but he did a really good job last time and he's willing to do it. So just give him another one, whatever, and have him keep doing that. It's like, I really don't want to do that on a regular basis. I really enjoy my next level status of what I'm really good at, like what you're saying is where I can really make the biggest impact for the company is doing higher level stuff. And I think everyone knows that. And I don't think I'm in a place where they're expecting me or even going to continually ask me to do things like this, which is why it's probably still in the fun status. It's still a little bit novel. So I will want to
Yeah,
put a
sure.
cap on it at some point. But it was kind of a neat little
Uh-huh.
thing where I've had to kind of like correct myself, where my first thought was, well, I don't do that anymore. I've been promoted beyond that. Like, shouldn't they have one of the other like territory people cover this job? I do big level shit, which is true, but the team needs it. All the other people are spread thin, and it does make sense, and I can do it. So I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do this. There will be a limit to it, but then the next thought is like, okay, so I'm going to do it, but I don't really have a whole lot of time to dedicate to it. So I might go touch this job, once or twice a month or whatever, and just kind of, mail it in and make it like, okay, I'm keeping an eye on it, but as soon as you get someone else in the area, they're going to need to take over and really cover it. And then my next thought after that was, fuck that. I'm going to fucking cover this thing like a motherfucking professional, and I'll use it as an example for the other guys who are still currently doing this job and show them how this should be done, because A, that's good for overall company, I think, morale and training. It's good for them to see a guy like me doing this, and it kind of go like, oh, damn, Mike's kind of getting in and doing this, right? And it sounds like I have a big head, but I do think that there's an element of that on the team. And the other thing is training these guys how to do these job coverages properly, because when I'm in my real role, I rely on them to do their job site roles very well and get me useful information, so that I can do my side of it, like going to the owner of a company and talking to him about a project. I can only speak intelligently about that project if I have accurate information from the guys who are working those jobs, so it's good. It's good. It's been interesting. It's an interesting kind of self-reflection thing. And it made me think of Jocko Willink. I don't know if you read any of his books. He's like an ex-Navy SEAL guy who writes...
The Navy SEAL? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He writes like leadership books, and guy's cool, dude. And a big thing that he talks about is being willing to do whatever it takes. The idea of like, hey, no matter what level you're at, still taking out the trash and letting the guys see you do that kind of stuff is important for the team morale. Also, like you mentioned, going up and taking issues up the ladder is an important thing. Making sure, not letting like dissatisfaction within yourself fester and not talk about it, but like taking those issues to the higher ups and going like, hey, but also like tailoring that message to the higher ups so you don't sound like you're going up there and just whining, but having like, productive team player aspects of that in play, but still bringing it to the higher ups' attention. Like, hey, this should really be done by this person. My time could be better spent here. But not coming off, I don't know, it's hard to like frame properly, but not coming off like, oh, I don't want to do this. This is beneath me kind of thing, right? Like that piece is important.
Yeah. You don't want to be like, hey, I can't, I'm not going to do that. And I mean, and just to clarify too, because this wasn't like, when I was doing that stuff or like asked to do it, it wasn't like the first time. This was like going on for more and more.
That's what it'll sound like to me if this continues, because I'll just be like, hey, I'll jump in when the team needs me, but we need to have our team properly staffed and job roles properly allocated. And this isn't mine. I'll jump in and help wherever I need to, but not forever.
Yeah, and I wrote that down even in one of my feedbacks too, because I brought it up a couple times and it was like just still happening, and it was like, the thing is like I want to be happy at work, you know what I mean? I want to be happy with what I do, and I give enough value that my workplace has always wanted me to be happy too. So it's kind of like I will take one for the team, and I don't mind doing little one-offs and stuff, all no problem, that's not even a problem for me. But it's when it's one-off and then another one and then another, and then oh, we need you to do this API work or something that's like totally like that you would outsource, or just not even they just don't have the resource for them, or they don't want to reach out to the team and get that resource. And it's like, just,
it's just like, easier to ask Derek. Like, you want to prevent that. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, oh, we could go through the effort of hiring or redistributing tasks, but Mike can do it. Just have Mike do it. Like, fuck that. I don't want to be that guy.
Right. Yeah. Not forever, at least. Right. Yeah.
Do you do reviews? do people report to you? Do you have people that report to you?
No, I don't have anybody that reports to me, and
So
that's
you
the way
report
I
to someone,
prefer
I
it.
assume. Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, I report to somebody.
Does your company do reviews where you're doing annual reviews, with
Yeah.
the person that you
Hmm.
report to? You do that too? I guess
Yep.
that's kind of
Yep.
ubiquitous now. Every company does that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's pretty
those are
standard.
always awkward. Like ours used to
Uh-huh.
include
Yeah.
two reviews, a self review where I review myself and I write down what I think of my own performance, piece by piece. And then there's also another review, which is a manager review where I'm reviewing the manager. And that's a very awkward thing because the manager I'm reviewing is the guy who's reading my review and in charge of how much of a raise or if any raise I get and, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, how honest can I really be in this review if, and I try to be
Yeah.
honest, but
No.
you really have to pick your words, right? You really can't just go like, this guy is a fucking jack off and he never answers his phone. And, he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. And we'd be better off just getting rid of this guy and replacing him and putting me in his position. I would do a much better job than him. Submit
Yeah. No.
review.
That is a difficult situation, and
Yeah.
it's like that, and that's where, because I put the feedback that I was telling you, I put the feedback in the review, and I
Hmm.
never want to do that. I always want to do it verbal first, and I did it verbal a couple times, and it
Yeah.
just wasn't sticking. It was still just like,
Sure.
run that just data import project, and I'm just like, okay,
Mm,
well, either, yeah, I want to be happy in my job, but so I
yeah.
put it in and I worded it really nicely. I just, as nice as I could, just that,
Yeah.
like, hey, if you want me to be happy, I don't want to be taking out the trash every day,
Hmm.
and it's going in that direction. So,
Yeah. I'll take it out today if it needs to be taken out, but let's make a plan
yeah,
moving
yeah,
forward because we know it's going to need to be
uh,
taken out tomorrow also, and we can do better than having me do it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
there's a thing where you got to like create the happiness, you got to create space to be happy in your own job. And what you have to do with that, you have to teach people how to treat you. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's kind of really what it comes down to.
That's
And
an
there's
interesting
some,
idea because deciding to be happy at work is a multi-layered thing. So it's not just, oh, no matter what happens, I'll be happy. And it is good to have a positive disposition. It does help you
yeah,
be happy, or if you think of yourself as someone who is happy.
hmm,
So just deciding to be optimistic can make you more happy. But it also means creating an environment around you that is fulfilling, which makes you happy. And also, like you said, training the people around you how you can be treated um, is essential. And I think it also makes them
hmm,
happier. Like clear expectations and clear guidelines makes everyone feel more secure. And when people feel more secure, they're easier to work with, and everyone ultimately becomes more happy. So it's like you're doing the company a benefit by requiring to remain happy. You know what I mean? If you just
absolutely,
stay in a
absolutely.
position
Yeah,
dissatisfied and then you grumble and puke negativity on other people and all that, like, dude, that
yeah,
sucks
yeah.
for you. It sucks for everyone else. It sucks for the company. Like, cut bait and move on. Change something or change the company. But
Right, exactly.
that's
Yeah,
on each
yeah.
individual, right?
Hmm. And that's where, like, there's been times in the past where things got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm I'm gonna jump ship. I'm
Sure.
thinking I'm gonna jump ship just because, sometimes you report to somebody that might not be a fit, or they just like,
Hmm.
there's too much micromanaging going on. And
Hmm.
yeah, there's been plenty of times where I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna jump ship, but before I do, I'm gonna reach out to Tim, the CTO, because me and him are really close, and I'm like, hey, I'm not happy with this situation. I'm either need to change who I'm working for, or I'm gonna bail.
Yeah,
And he values me enough, or it has in the past, where he's made it right. And it was
that's cool.
like, yeah, no, it feels good to be appreciated from that perspective, and
Hmm.
from that, like, it just makes me respect him a lot more too, because I'm willing to do anything for him.
Right.
He asked me to go and dig a ditch 100 feet long. I'll do it. I
Hmm.
would do it.
I could rent you equipment
And
to
I
do that.
know yeah, you can rent me that.
Yeah.
But and he would only ask me that if he needed me to do it, and he couldn't get somebody else to do it. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
anyway, obvious there's this does touch on some issues that I had been going through too, just because,
I bet it does
I
for a
think
lot of
that
people, because I think we all want to
yeah,
be a team
yeah,
player, but we also
uh-huh,
want to realize our own self-worth. But then
yeah,
there's also this piece of accepting our own worth in a company. Sometimes you have to reflect on that too, right? Where it's just kind of like, I think
yeah,
maybe some
sure,
people, and I don't think that's necessarily the case here, because I feel like I'm being pretty open-minded and teamy about this situation. Certainly sounds like you are also. But I think some
hmm,
people maybe even have like an inflated self worth in the workplace, where they're just
sure,
kind of, thinking maybe this is beneath me, and then maybe it's not. Like maybe that
hmm,
maybe that is
yeah,
your job,
oh
or it
yeah,
is what you should be doing. So I think maybe as a
hmm,
manager or a leader, it would be tough, and I wouldn't enjoy doing it myself, but it would be a tough thing to identify that in other people and helping coach them
hmm,
through that to either accept to either help them accept what they should be doing or realize a set of tasks that is in line with what they should be doing. Um,
hmm.
that's got to be kind of tough. That part of leadership is interesting to me, but it wouldn't interest me to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What's so difficult about that is that what is the best thing that you could find is like a boss that is, and when I say boss, I use that kind of loosely,
Sure.
just because nowadays, like being a boss isn't really like you must do that. Those days are kind of gone where you're like running a Taco Bell night shift, like, are you here
Right.
on time? Like, are you going to do that? It's kind of like motivating people is such a it requires respect, and that they respect you, not that they revere you,
Right.
because if reverence causes, anytime I've had somebody where somebody wanted reverence, I'm like, okay, I'm backing off.
Hmm.
I don't feel motivated because it's like, I am the boss, kind of like that thing. I don't feel
Right.
motivated from it. But like what's amazing is like the CTO is not like that at all. And like, he's just like, hey, can you do this? I mean, I jump to doing anything that he says, but at the same time, he's just not, he's not like, you need to do this by this time and I need it done by then. There'll be times like, hey, I really need something. I really need to get it done. Can you do I do everything I can. I mean,
Right.
I've worked overnight for him, just not never slept, and I'll do
Hmm.
it again, but it's just um I missed the point. I forgot what I started saying, but it wasn't related with this. I ran off a
Well, I
little
think
bit.
like what it sounded like to me, what I was getting is like the way people ask for things makes a huge difference in the way you buy in to that. So if someone's just
Yeah.
always
Right.
dictating what needs to be done, maybe
Hmm.
sometimes it sticks, and other times you're just like, this guy's always just fucking bossing me around, whatever. And then you do the minimum to get past and check that box, but it really doesn't have your heart
Right.
in it. But
Right.
um, when someone creates that emotional bank account with you,
Hmm.
and then they choose to make a withdrawal, they've invested so much into that emotional bank account, and then they choose to make a withdrawal, you're ready, willing, and able to be like, oh, when they ask me for something, it means something, and I'm going to
Yeah.
jump on that. And that's an important piece of leadership, dude, is creating that level of buy-in. And I
Hmm.
think you also touched
Yeah.
on another
Sure.
thing where these days it's very different. Where back in the day, a boss just told you what to do. You show up at this time, you do this, and you clock out at this time, and that's what they just tell you what to do. And it's very different now.
Hmm.
Now the workforce wants to be told why they do what they do, and they want you know a, a sustainable work-life balance, and they want an enjoyable workplace, and they want enough time for a realistic lunch and all that kind of stuff, which is fucking crucial to people being happy and doing a good job, touching back on what we mentioned.
Hmm.
But it's also a big shift, I think, in the employer-employee dynamic, for the better, I think. For the most part, there's probably some exceptions to that, but I think for the better overall, company and employee.
It It is for the better. And, because I've managed people in the past, like at Active PDF, like I've
Mm,
said it before in here, I had no business at that time managing people. Like now I can manage people now. But
mm-hmm.
managing people, really what that means is more is just kind of like not riding their ass. You know what I mean? Not being like,
Yeah.
I'm the boss. Because I know these things because I had those things where I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, I'm the boss. You're not the, and you feel like you have to be standoffish or you have to have some space between
Sure.
you and the employee. That's not how it should be done. And when I went to the management class, that's what they drilled into you over and over and over. It's like, no, you do not create this gap of like, I am the boss and you are the employee. You just don't do that. And I failed that test even after I went through that class. But in retrospect, I did realize what they were trying to teach. And then what really brought me to understanding what good management was having a really good manager, like the
Yeah.
CTO, Tim, that I work for. I
Yeah.
reported to him for probably like 5 or 6 years, where it's just like, this guy, like, he's just got it down. He's got it down.
Yeah.
And
When you work with a manager who is really good at this, it stands out and it sticks with you. And and then when you start reporting to someone else, it sucks because like you keep comparing them to that really good leader who totally got your buy-in and motivated you, and then you got someone else who's kind of like weak or annoying or any combination of that, and then you're just always like, man, reporting that other guy was so much better, and then I have to check myself where it's like, hey, it's not about them managing me, it's about me managing my position, and part of my position is managing up and dealing with this guy, and so figure out a way to make
that's
it work
absolutely
because I can't blame
well
this
said.
guy. I can't make it
Yeah.
frustrate. I can't be frustrated because of someone else. I can only control myself and my response to it. So then I come back to, all right, well, what can I do differently? Is there something he needs to get off my back? Or how do I create a dynamic that works for me? Because that's way better than just kind of, it's the only thing you can do because the only alternative is just complain about a manager. And that doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yeah, it's you got to create that space for yourself to be happy, and there's no compromise. And I say
Yeah.
that, I mean, of course, there's days and even sometimes weeks where I'm just kind of pissed off at the same thing, but then I
Sure.
make a decision. You got to make that decision of like, okay, I'm not going to let this affect my happiness anymore. This is from now on. This is how I'm going to divest from being upset, and I'm going to either have a discussion with somebody or I'm going to, deal with it in some way that
Do you do
is,
anything structured like a pros and cons list, or like list out these are the things, like even like fear setting, like we've talked about, like, oh, hey, I'm really frustrated about this, or I'm fearful of doing this. So you list out the things that may happen as a result, and then you take action based on that. Or even like an old school pros and cons list where you kind of like write out, or even just mentally think about, these are all the good aspects of it and these are all the bad aspects of it. And it helps you kind of separate and focus on the good stuff. Or even then focusing on the things, these are the things I can control and these are the things I can't control. And then it's just stupid to focus on things you can't control. So it helps to alleviate stress a lot of times where you can go, oh, okay, so this situation is frustrating because of this, this, and this. I can't control this or this, but I can control this, and focus on that. The one thing you can control should get 100% of your attention because the other things are out of your control.
Yeah, I don't do it structured like that. I guess I go through some exercises in my head, but probably not something, it would be good to create some time too to go through those things and actually dedicate instead of just ruminating in your head about that. So I
Usually
think
that
like
time is
having a
pooping for me.
structure. Oh, you're not on your phone when you're pooping?
Sometimes,
Well, of course you
sometimes
are.
I'm
Yeah,
actually
you got.
thinking, or the shower. Sometimes I think in the shower, or driving. You just kind of like spend a little bit of time walking. Walking is a good one. Walking and thinking is always nice. So if you're gonna like, you dude, and not like I like go for walks. I don't really feel like I have time in my life I'm gonna go for a walk. It'll be like walking up the street to the mailbox or something. While I'm walking up there, I'll kind of mull something over in my head or try to focus, or even I try to like think about like, what am I thinking about? What's occupying my mind right now? And nine
Yeah,
times
that's a
out of
good
10,
exercise.
90% of what's occupying my mind is shit that's out of my control. And I just go like, all right,
Yeah,
well, fuck all
absolutely. I
that
know, huh?
shit because it's a
Yeah.
pointless waste of time and energy. So here are the few things I can control. Focus on that.
Yeah,
So
no, that's so true. That's like the human condition, we're just
yeah,
always
worry.
um yeah, Mark
And
Twain has a great
imagine all
quote.
these like fictitious scenarios, where you just kind of like imagining things and you're like, dude, all of this is just made up in my head. Like
Yeah.
what's actually happening and what can you actually do about it? Okay, that simplifies everything. Crack another beer. Shoot.
Yeah,
Hey,
no,
I
Mark
made
Twain said,
something. Oh, what's he say?
he says, I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which never happened.
Yeah, that's a
I thought
great
it was,
quote. It's a great
yeah,
quote. Yeah, Mark Twain was
uh
fucking
yeah,
prolific, dude. That guy was so great.
yeah, yeah, he
Have you
was.
ever read any of his books? Not his novels like fiction, but any of his, well, for him, pseudo nonfiction, but any of that kind of stuff? Like
No,
I'm
I
thinking
don't,
of The
I
Innocents
really don't
Abroad.
even read. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't read at all, like
I,
zero.
well,
I'm
you
like,
read a quote. That's pretty good. You read some Mark
yeah,
Twain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
All right. 11 words.
that's
That's
about
good.
it. Yeah, yeah.
His book, Innocents Abroad, is like one of the greatest books ever written. It's hilarious.
Really?
It's
Okay. Is
it's
it?
nonfiction in the sense where it's a true book that he wrote traveling the world. So it's all about him, Mark Twain, getting on a cruise ship and traveling the world. So it's him basically just going to some of the most amazing destinations in the world in the late 1800s. Like he goes to fucking Rome and Athens and all the most amazing destinations all over the world. And his insightful, sarcastic, humorous outlook on everything is super fun to listen to because it's this mix of humor and history and geography and travel guide all mixed into one. And
Mm,
he's just a hilarious motherfucker, dude. It's a great book. I love it. Recommend Innocents Abroad wholeheartedly.
okay. Okay.
You should not read
Yeah.
it.
Mm, okay. I won't read
All
it.
right. All right.
um,
Um, hey, so we have been playing around with this awesome new studio recording platform. And one of the things that we've been playing with is creating videos and using AI to make videos because AI is fun. And I wanted to share one with you because I was looking for an intro video. And I got off topic with trying to actually create like an intro video and just started playing with AI for fun. And
yeah.
so I gave a super simple prompt to AI to create an intro video for the Derek and Mike podcast. And and then I gave it some basic description of us and our podcast. So I told it, create an intro for the Derek and Mike podcast. Derek and Mike have been friends for a long time. We used to party a lot, but now we're dedicated dads. Derek used to be a Zen Buddhist. Mike used to be a punk rock drummer. And that was it.
Mm,
You
hmm.
want to see the video it came up with?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see.
All right, here, I'm going to share my screen, see if I can figure this out.
My screen is a little blurry.
That's all right.
I
It'll
think I
come through good
need.
on the final thing.
Okay.
Whoops. I need to make it bigger. There we go. All right, can you see the video?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So this is the video with that simple AI prompt.
Ready to dive into the wild ride from drumsticks to bags? Say hello to Derek and Mike. Derek, our resident Zen master, used to find his calm in the chaos of city life. Meanwhile, Mike was
Mm-hmm.
smashing drums and punk rock dream. Fast forward a few years, and now these two are more about play dates than mosh pits. Join us on the Derek and Mike podcast as we navigate the hilarious, heartwarming, and sometimes down-fusing world of fatherhood. Lots of laughs, sage advice from Derek, and unpredictable stories from Mike. Whether you're changing diapers or just need a good laugh, we've got you covered. So tune in and let's rock this life together.
Pretty crazy, right?
That's cool. Yeah. That's pretty neat.
Dude, I was blown
Yeah.
away. I was like, wow, it took so little prompting and turned into something like that had heart and like thought and a good voiceover. And
Yeah.
like, dude, it's fucking amazing what AI can make. Like I gave it nothing and it made that.
It really is amazing. I mean, I use it every single day at work. And in fact, like if I'm not using it, then I'm not doing the best job that I can
Right.
because
If I'm
it
wasting my immense mental focus on menial things like making a Derek and Mike podcast intro, then yeah, talk about misallocated resources.
hmm no, it just it I can do a 3-week project in a day.
You know how long that video would have taken if I went out and found the stock video footage? Not even counting if I went out and filmed anything with actual actors. That's
Yeah,
multiplying the
right.
time of production exponentially, but just went out and found stock video like AI did. But finding
Uh-huh.
applicable stock video, writing out the narration, storyboarding the whole thing, getting a voiceover to voice it, producing it, editing it, the whole thing, would it take me several full work days? Maybe like a really good video editor, maybe a day or 2 or 3, but me, fucking honestly, 3 weeks probably. And I was like, God damn, this is pretty great. I also love the fact that it showed all these ethnically and racially diverse people, because I didn't give it any information about what you and I look like other than Derek and Mike. It didn't even assume that Derek and Mike were men, so it showed like
Showed you
a
as a girl
woman,
drummer.
yeah, like a girl drummer, and 2 black guys doing a podcast. And
Uh-huh.
it was
Well,
pretty
the name
great.
Derek, you could derive that.
I guess, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny what it came up with. It was almost like a McDonald's commercial. It was so like purposefully racially diverse. So like in the absence of information, it didn't just assume Derek and Mike were white guys, which odds are Derek and Mike are, not 90% likely white, but we're probably 70% likely white with Mike and Derek.
Well, I don't know about the name Derek is mostly, at least when I was younger, is mostly a black name.
Is Derek mostly a black name? Okay. Mike could be kind of anything, except, not so much like Hispanic or
I never met a
Middle
black,
Eastern or
black Mike. Yeah.
I've known a black Mike. Yeah. Yeah, I've known a black
really?
Mike. Not many. Most Mikes are like white guys.
Yeah.
Mike is a very white guy
No.
kind of a name, like a construction guy. Like, go ask Mike.
Yeah.
I
can see that.
But it didn't just assume like AI is almost, maybe it's influenced by our social insecurities and our need to make everything like racially nonspecific or even sexually nonspecific.
I think that's dead on. Yeah, I think.
Do you
that's
think
exactly
that
what it
AI is accounting for our wokeness in
Yes.
society?
I do.
Maybe that.
Yeah, because the way it works, and like I have a loose understanding of how it works, and it's obviously extremely complex. It is and it isn't.
Sure.
I think what it does, it basically indexes everything on the internet. Every
Right.
single piece of text that's on the internet, it drops it into a bucket.
Right.
And then that bucket is given an address. And then as you're typing a sentence, each word relates to an address of that bucket. And each
Okay.
word in that sentence is contextual. So it kind of finds the addresses and pulls them together, and then it finds a middle ground of all those addresses and
It summarizes.
go.
It's great at summarizing things. So it
Summarizes it, yeah.
summarizes the breadth of human knowledge into relevant, condensed summarizing statements.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about, 2 old friends that used to be a Zen Buddhist and a punk rocker doing a podcast, that condenses the breadth of human knowledge into a much tighter bucket, still immense buckets of information, but a much tighter bucket that it can then summarize and create the most likely scenarios. And absent things like ethnic descriptions or whether they're men or women, then it just compensates for those on a neutral, like a neutral basis. So it's like, we didn't get any ethnic information, so we're just going to create an evenly dispersed mix of all common ethnicities.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's even based on the commonality. Like maybe you could say, okay, this is clearly an American or an English-speaking podcast. So in English-speaking culture, I don't know, 33% of the people are black and 32% are Hispanic, 51% are white, and maybe it even disperses the representation of ethnicity versus that instead of evenly spacing it all, because there was only one black person, if I remember right.
Well, I think what it probably does, because most GPTs, I think that's what they're called, are they are trained a little bit. So like they have like a preamble to them to shape it a little bit. So in that preamble, you can write, anytime you're showing people and you have a choice for multiple, just show multiple, and you give it that prompt, and then from then on it will always do that. So that's probably what it's doing. But I do think it's also picking up on the woke stuff too that's out there, and it's kind of merging it all together and kind of, it takes like I feel like it takes like a mean or like an average of everything, and kind of
that's
brings
what it feels
into,
like. I mean,
yeah.
it did show like an even dispersion of different ethnicities. And I thought it was interesting. That was a cool video that it created that was super
Mhm.
relevant and well thought out. And it did it in like 3 minutes after just a couple sentences of prompting. Like, it's just really impressive. I didn't revise it or tell it, okay, now change this or any of that. That was just the first shot at it, couple of sentences of prompt, and pretty fucking good. I mean, we won't use
Yeah.
it. I'm not going to pay to actually have the video outputted. That's why it had watermark on it. But pretty neat, dude.
Well, it was kind of like saying like Derek and Mike are now adulting.
Yeah, yeah. And then I showed it to my wife, and she was like, "So is that your thing? You guys are doing like a dad podcast?" And I don't know. We don't really have a thing. Like, we talk about being dads because we're dads, but we also talk about everything really. Like, I don't know what our show notes are, or what our, if someone was to say, "Oh, what do you guys do a podcast about?" I guess I always just say like, "Oh, me and Derek have been friends forever. We just talk about everything." But I don't know. Maybe it is a more tight description that AI could, after it's transcribed 10 episodes or 100 episodes, maybe it could give us a better summary of the Derek and Mike podcast than you and I can think of,
That's what I think is going to be interesting, is like, because I'm sure I guarantee at some place everything that is ever created is transcribed and stored.
Yeah.
So that it probably has happened already, and they know
Mhm.
what everything that's being discussed. Essentially, they could sum it down into a sentence.
Well, the
and then
podcast is
yeah.
already being transcribed, because when we upload an episode, I don't tell Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms that we cuss in our podcast, but it always gets that explicit,
Mm.
mark on the podcast episode, which means they're transcribing it to some degree to realize that we do say bad words in the podcast, and so they give it the explicit logo next to that episode. Same thing with music. Like, songs on Spotify or iTunes or whatever will tell you if it's got explicit language. I'm sure some human didn't go through each song and say, "Oh yeah, he said hell in this one, so we got to give it the E." It's all automated and has been for a long time. So now it's just more. It's more easily accessible and universal, but it's been there for a really long time.
Totes.
Toots, me goot.
I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
You know what it made me think of? Because
Uh-huh.
you've changed a lot. We talked about this a little bit before the podcast started, is that you've changed a lot physically. You look very different. You're a very Tennessee gent these days, where you used to be very like LA guy in your little sports car. You were bald,
Yeah.
clean shaven, and very zen. You were very much like you were very you exuded zenness. Is that a word?
Yeah. You could see me wearing Birkenstocks, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, totally. And then you moved to Tennessee, and very quickly you grew your hair back, grew a big old beard, drive an F-150. You're very much Tennessee now. You're still the same Derek, but a very different Derek. And then even as I was giving it the description of Derek used to be a Zen master or a Zen Buddhist, I was thinking like, what role does that play in your life today versus how it used to play? Has any of that, remained or stayed or changed, or like, how do you see yourself spiritually now compared to when you were super active in that?
No, that's a good question, because like that all never left me. Like that, the whole how would I call it? The essence of it. I don't know.
Zenitude.
It never left me. You call it the practice, because that is what it is. The practice being the moment to moment awareness aspect of it, to where but it's changed though. It changed a lot, because I used to think that like Zen was, you go and you sit down and you meditate, and that's what Zen is, and that's really the only way. And then it's a goal to go to something is what it is. And don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of an aspect of that too. I mean, that's not always a dangerous thing to have, because when you first start Zen, there's no way that you can not have a goal. You know what I mean? You could act like,
Sure,
oh,
yeah.
but for me, what it is now, it's more about embracing and being honest with myself and being honest about every situation I am in my life.
Hmm.
And like, sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes I don't want to look at it. Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, I was wrong in that situation. I shouldn't have done that. But, accepting it and being accepting of it and being accepting of even the mistakes that I make, but embracing what actually is, and not lying to myself. That's probably the biggest thing, because we all do it. We all go through long periods of time. I think I'll go through a week of lying to myself about something, or,
Uh-huh.
but really, like, to actually truthfully look at everything and be in your body, as weird as that sounds too. It's kind of like being in the moment. So like, my practice of Zen has changed from a sitting practice to more of an everyday kind of practice, is, I
Okay.
guess, how I would answer that.
Yeah. So it's almost like taking something from the classroom to the real world.
Yeah.
You practice something in an environment where you're working with a teacher and other students in a sense, where you're like really learning something, absorbing the essence of all of that. And then eventually you take that out into the real world and you put your practice into practice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing, because then you see some people who maybe Zen or maybe whatever, they remain in that practicing, learning phase forever, like in
Yes.
perpetuity. And it's
Yeah.
like, when are you going to put this to work? When are you going to go out and be the person that you're learning to be, or talking about being, or telling other people they need to be? When are you going to go out and just live it versus learn it?
So true. Yeah. And because the other thing too is, like, yeah, people think that, like, meditation is a means to something, and
Right.
really meditation, I think, is just a means to break you down in a way. It's a means to, like, really just crack your ego and break it in a way to where you're forced to look at what you are, and but you looking at it as a means to something. That's a very common misconception. I mean, it's the most common misconception, I think,
Sure.
probably in Zen, is that you're trying to become something, you're trying to seek something and get something, but it's, and like Dogen Zenji says, it's a backward step. It's not
Mhm.
going towards a direction. It's being what you are and accepting it, fully accepting it, which is really hard. It's really hard. I don't accept I don't know. I do things that I don't accept. I'll like beat myself up. I don't know if you have this issue, but I'll oftentimes beat myself up for, like, I'll do something that I think was stupid, or I'll say something I shouldn't have said, or whatever. I think that I shouldn't have said it. And then I just, well, you stupid, you idiot, you done it. That was so stupid. And I've learned, man, like, this is one of the biggest things that I've learned too, is like, I can't beat myself up over that
Mhm.
stuff. I have to, like, be as kind. I have to be kind. And the truth is that when you're kind to yourself, then you are going to be kind to other people too, because when they
Mhm.
make that same mistake, you're not going to be so critical of them, because you are willing to forgive yourself. So when they do it, you're willing to forgive them too.
That's an interesting thing to bring up, because I think sometimes it's easier to forgive other people than it is to forgive yourself.
Yeah,
And
that too.
I've certainly had those too, where you do something or you say something and it just keeps playing over in your mind, and you keep imagining scenarios where you said or did something differently. I wish I would have said this, or I should have said that, or, you almost kind of like replay the scenario in your imagination. And
Mhm.
I'll even like recognize what I'm doing and essentially tell myself, like, stop imagining scenarios that didn't happen. What happened happened, and all you can do is accept it and either do this or that. Here's your bucket of actual things you can do because of it, but it doesn't help at all to replay it. And even then, it's really hard, even after recognizing what I'm doing and telling myself to stop replaying it. It
It still replays.
continually replays. Yeah.
You can't
Yeah. So
stop.
it's,
You can't stop there's thoughts. We don't
yeah.
control our thoughts. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So
But
the only way to do it is, like you're saying, you'll replay it without wanting to. So you have to forgive yourself. Or at least that's the only way that I found was to do that.
No, I'm with you. And I think that's a really cool place to get to. For me, it was kind of like stoicism, similar to not so much of a structured practice with a group or a teacher, but learning stoicism myself and trying to practice it and doing all that. And then there comes a time when, and I think Seneca even has a really cool a really cool quote that I don't remember exactly, but essentially it was, you can't just be like a paper philosopher and think and read and talk. You actually need to go out and like live this way. And that's when you become a stoic versus someone who's learning about stoicism. Is like, go out and put the shit in practice. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant to be a set of guidelines that you try to live by, and you will fail, you will fall short. And when you do, you'll have this set of rules or practices to fall back on to help get you back on course. But you do need to take it out into the world and use it. And, it's very true. And then it's also something where, inevitably you stumble on, you forget about, you fall short of, and all that. But it's cool to have that set of things that you learned and things that you practice and that foundation to fall back on to, feel better, do differently, be better, all that shit.
It's like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the nose.
The great Mike Tyson. It's very true.
You could be like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, as soon as somebody cuts you off or really pisses you off, you're like, fuck,
Yeah. I try to be ultra patient, and I'm not a naturally patient guy. I naturally have a temper, and it is a lot of work for me to control my temper, to moderate my response to things. It's something that I continually and constantly work on, and it's a work in progress. But practicing and acknowledging and accepting has improved me a great deal, but it continues to be a practice for sure.
Yeah. No, well said.
Something that I'm thinking of now that caused me to practice this moderation of temper is constantly, it's my kids. Because kids can be frustrating, right? And you get tired, you get hungry, kids get tired and hungry. Sometimes it's just fucking frustrating. But I wonder if I guess what I'm trying to shape is, I grew up with a dad who had a pretty bad temper. My dad's awesome. He's my best friend now, and we have this great relationship, and he'd be the first to agree that he's always struggled with a temper, just like I'm explaining. And as a kid, I remember growing up with a dad that had a temper, and I remember thinking that he could explode over something in an instant, or he could be totally understanding and supportive and compassionate and all that. So you never really knew what to expect, and I think it always keeps you on your toes a little bit when you're with someone like that. And recognizing that, I really want to be different with my kids, because I remember the uncertainty that created in me, and I remember how it felt when my dad exploded, and I don't want that for them, even though I've certainly exploded in front of them more times than I'd like, but I have to accept it and forgive myself and try to do better next time. And I try to be conscious of it in the moment. It's hard, but I do try. And we were doing something yesterday. My boys are over the moon excited about Halloween, and it's even the week before October started, they were already like, can we decorate the house? Can we decorate the house? And they're very excited about it. I love Halloween too. So we set a line. It was like, okay, when it's October, we can decorate the house. We can't do it in September. So as soon as October hit, they knew it. And they're like, is it October? I'm like, yeah, it's October. So we pulled down all the bins, and it's time to start decorating the house. And Sarah does all the inside of the house. She's got the design hands, but I do the outside stuff, like putting up the outside yard decorations, the big inflatable dudes, all that kind of stuff. We love that. I love that stuff. And this year, my older boy is old enough to actually help. And so he's super excited about it. He and I are out there putting up the inflatable dudes, and you need to nail or hammer in the support stakes that keep stretchy wires that go up to the inflatable guys so that they remain standing even in wind. It always kind of corrects them. It's like tent ropes, essentially keeping them in place, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing this together, and he's 5. So as I'm trying to get him to stay still and focus, he's wiggly and he's all over the place. He's stepping on the wires and all that kind of stuff. And And immediately inside of me, I get a little frustrated, and I'm like, can you just sit still? In my head, I'm thinking this, can you just sit still and help me here? And then I immediately remembered
Yeah.
helping my dad in the garage and how frustrated he got and how I was honestly trying to do my best, but I was also wiggly. And I remember trying to like hold the light for him while he was doing something, and I'd like hold the flashlight for him. That was always my job because it's, any idiot can do it. So he would ask me, hold the light for me. And he's down there working on the inside of an engine or fixing something, and I'm holding the light. And inevitably my focus strays and I look away and the light starts going away, and he'd grab my hand and put it back, remind me, hey, Michael, hold the light, like that kind of stuff. And I remember seeing him get frustrated and like, I remember it, the feeling of like, oh, I'm not doing a good job. And he'd have to like call me back to attention. And I noticed that with my boys where they get a little wiggly, they lose focus. And I'm like purposely trying to be more patient with my response because I don't want them to have that same feeling of, oh, I'm doing a bad job and I'm making dad mad kind of thing,
Yeah, no, I can relate to that too, because I try to involve Esman some of the things that I do just like that as well.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating sometimes when you're watching just anybody do something that is where they're learning it, because you want to just take over and be like, oh, this is how you do it. And I have to stop. I try to stop myself that, but I'm with you. I like try to look at like, and let her make mistakes. Let her just like, do a mistake, and so that she learns it, and it's hard. It's hard to watch that though. Part of you just wants to take over and be like, this is how you do it, and sometimes I do that, but
well, sure. But it's also important to remember that piece of let them do it, let them learn, let them make the mistake, and don't get mad about it, and that's ever present in my mind. And it was evident the other day when we were doing the Halloween decorations, because then even like the part where you hammer in that super flimsy, narrow little metal spike to fasten the string that holds the inflatable guy, when you hammer that little spike into the dirt, our dirt is really hard and that little spike is super weak, and you have to really be careful tapping that in with the hammer or it bends. And I want Michael to learn how to use a hammer, so he's doing it, he's hammering it, and he's offline, and so it bends a little, and then I'll kind of like stop him like, okay, so now it's bending because we're not hitting it in the right direction and all that. And so kind of straighten it out and get him going. And then I'm holding it with my fingers while he hammers it to keep it from bending. And he keeps hitting my fingers while he's doing it. And I'm like, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just don't hit it super hard. Just keep going. I'll tell you to stop if it hurts, but trying to get him to where he can feel confident hammering this thing in. And he did. It was a cool moment or a cool thing to do together, where eventually he was able to hammer a whole stake into the ground without it bending before it met all the way down to the fastening point. And it was really cool, dude. And so I was proud of him, and I was proud of myself for keeping my patience together and letting him go through the experience versus just give me the hammer and let me do it. I can do it in,
I
30 seconds. And it was hard. I had to like make myself do it, but it was really gratifying at the end when he did it. And I think it was gratifying for him too. And I hope he remembers like, hey, I used to help my dad set up Halloween decorations and he let me do stuff, versus, oh, I used to try to help my dad do stuff and I just frustrated him.
Yeah, you're building confidence. And Esme did something the other day that knocked me off my socks like a little bit. It was amazing. And so I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago I know parts of our podcast that are safe,
Oh, risky.
So I played some of it, and it was just like us going to the grocery store or whatever, like the grocery stores talk, something that's
okay.
like,
Oh, was it 2 bananas?
Yeah, it was 2 bananas.
I can't believe that lady bought 2 bananas.
Yeah, it was funny. So I played some of that for her, and then we got in the truck the other day, or was it yesterday? I think I may have, but I think it was yesterday, and I was singing a song, so I wanted to put it on the radio. And I'm like, oh, I'm singing this song. I was telling her because she was in the back. I said, I'm going to put this on the radio or on Spotify. And then as I'm doing that, she's like, Daddy, can we play? And right when she did that, I have this bad habit. I'm like, no, I'm not, because she always wants to play one of her songs, which is okay. It's fine. We play her songs, but like I had this one in my head. So I was like, I'm like, no, honey. I'm like, let me get this song out first. So I kind of shut it down. And a little bit later, she was like, I wanted to play your podcast. I wanted to listen to your guys' podcast. Can we listen to the Derek and Mike podcast? And I was like,
Wow.
oh, my heart just
You're like,
melted.
yes, honey, we can.
My
I
heart
love you.
melted. I was like, oh man. But it was like after we got home and everything, she just kind of
Yeah.
told me later. She's like, I just really wanted to listen to the Derek and Mike podcast. I'm like, oh, now
Oh,
I'm
you're
like
such,
also scared.
you're such a horrible person. You shut her down, crushed her spirit.
Yeah. I'm like, no. But
Well, dude, and that's such a sweet thing to ask for, but a very risky thing too. Like we're not kid friendly, even though we talk about having kids
No.
a lot. Like
no, yeah.
I'll let my kids listen to this when they're way older.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that just I gotta kind of know what is coming because otherwise,
Yeah.
because we'll just pull something out of left field, just out of the nowhere, and
yeah.
just be like, oh shit,
Yeah, there's
like
no
she
filter.
can't hear that word, Yeah, there's no.
Oh man, we're in the phase now where my boys repeat everything, and now my older boy, my 5-year-old, I'm finally holding him accountable and telling him, "You're going to hear things that are not okay to say," and it's your job to decide what's okay to say and what's not, because you're going to hear things, you're going to see things, and there's a time and a place for everything. And if you make a joke in front of me and it's funny, that doesn't mean it's okay to say at school and in front of your teacher or at a grocery store or with grandma. So you got to know what's okay, and it's your job now. So just because you hear someone say shit doesn't mean it's okay for you to say shit. You need to know what's okay, and it's your job now. And he's starting to get it. Whereas he used to be able to just blurt out whatever he wanted and almost had the safety net of, hey, I'm just 5, like, I don't know what I'm saying. My daddy said that. And like, I don't care
Right.
where you heard it. If you heard it from me or you heard it from someone else, it's your job now. You choose what you say. You have to know what's okay. And it's going okay. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's flashing me back to some of those ages. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, it's
No,
time for us to wrap up.
yeah.
We've been at it for an hour. And this was our first real good episode on the new platform. Our last one, which, was good. It was a good 30, 40 minutes or something. And we had some tech issues, and it was our trial run. So it was a good test. But this was like an actual real show. This was a ton of fun, dude.
Yeah. No, this is good, man.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
here we
I'm
go.
looking forward to getting this up on something. I mean, I'm
Episode-
not trying to push you. Yeah.
Yeah. Episode 60
Hello.
in the can.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Fucking 60. Can you believe we've done 60 of these?
Yeah. No, I can't. Damn,
Well,
60.
We
Shit.
have. Number 60
Like-
right here.
Yeah, that's a long time, man.
Yep. We're old, especially you.
We are old.
All right, brother. Always fun.
Okay.
Good to see you.
All right. You too, bro. All
Later,
right.
man.
See you, man.